Namaste. Hello everyone. Welcome to Shal Gulhati, Shiva and Mysticism for another episode of Monday with Mahadev. For the past 3 episodes, we have been talking about the truth seeker, which is a person who seeks the truth. What is the truth of life? What is the truth of creation? We spoke about Sister Nivedita, who was a great disciple of Swami Vivekananda, and a chapter that she wrote in her book, Cradle Tales of Hinduism, about Shiva. How even Shiva tries to meditate, he does dhyana, he tries to think, he does chintan about what is the purpose of all of life, how should creation go forward. And in the last video, the last Monday, we did something which we called how consciousness meets manifestation, how God actually pervades the world that He creates, and how He is present in each and every being and each and everything, and yet looks to meet more so that His consciousness can now think of what to do next. After these videos, I saw another beautiful picture of Shiva on the Facebook, which I'm sharing with you. We have Shiva here, a statue of him, seated very, very elegantly with one foot on the ground, the other on his lap, and his hand on that lap. And the look that he has is surely a gentle look, but that of someone who, of course, has known the truth and who is now quite moored into what he has to do next. And I shared this on Facebook with a very small post called Jobs. And in that I wrote, let the mechanics, the engineers, the doctors, the soldiers, the cooks, everyone do their job. The spiritualist has a job too, to create a beautiful, very harmonious atmosphere so that others benefit about consciousness and know what is the purpose of life. Now, what really is the purpose of life? There are as many answers to this as the different diverse things that we see in the manifest world that we think that God has created for us. To answer this question, we will add another one to it, which is, why did God create? So why did God create this world? And then what is the purpose of our life in this world that He has created and where we find ourselves? To answer the first question, in the simplest of terms, the Upanishads, which are our very esteemed records of our rishis who meditated thousands of years ago and noted some observations about what they think is the play of consciousness and manifestation. The Upanishads say, in the beginning, there was God, and He was alone. He looked around and He thought, I am alone. Let me be two, let me be many. Now, we must remember that that God, which was alone in the beginning, was not a God with a body, but a God which was primal energy, Chaitanyam. And that Chaitanyam, that energy, which is by itself, before the world is created, before there is any space or any time, is just by itself. And therefore, that age of Chaitanyam, of God being in Himself, can be longer than the age of the universe in which we live. And we know that the age of this universe is billions of years. So that is after time was created, but we do not know what was the age of God being with Himself and knowing Himself. So finally, God was with Himself and He cognized Himself. He perceived that He is an energy, and that energy has a lot of potential and it can manifest anything. So He knew Himself, He cognized Himself in one way. and then he wanted to recognize himself. He knew himself in one way, and he wanted to know himself in yet another way, and that is why he thought, let me be two, let me be many, and he created the world, the universe as we know it. This is pretty much like when we go to the barber shop or hair cutting salon and we get a haircut, and at the end of it, it is almost a tradition that the stylist shows you a mirror so that you can see yourself from here, then he takes it here, you can see yourself from here, and so on. So just wanting to see ourselves from another perspective is what we do in the salon, and this is almost the same thing. God knew himself by himself, and he wanted to know himself in another way. Therefore, he created the universe, which we call samsara, and samsara, which means the world, also means a brief, a summary of what Sam is. Sam is consciousness, Chaitanya. So this whole universe which we know, its age, which is huge, may be lesser than the age of Chaitanyam even while it was resting, because Chaitanyam is eternal. And also this universe which we know, it is huge, billions and billions of miles across the space, is just a summary of what God is. Now that we know that God created this universe in order to see himself in another way, to learn, to grow, to play, and made all of us, and he exists in us as Antaryami, the Chaitanyam from which we have come is within us also, each one of us. We cannot live without Chaitanyam. The body cannot live without the soul. Now that we know God's purpose, what is our purpose? And almost all peers of all cultures and religions across the globe from all times agree that the real purpose of life is to connect back with that Godhead from where we came, is to realize our own divinity once we are here in this body. So to realize Chaitanyam while we are in this body, to get connected to the source, which in Shaivism is Mahadev, we can call it by another name, that is the purpose of life. And that is where the spiritualists come in, while the engineers and doctors and all these good people do their job. The spiritualist tries to help us to connect back to our divinity. And once we have glimpses of our divinity, we do not stop living. I mean, if we are an engineer and we have a spiritual awakening, we continue to be an engineer. If we are a doctor and we have our spiritual awakening, we continue to be a doctor. We continue to do what we do. If you are a football player, you continue to play your football, but you do it with a totally different understanding. What is called, you do it by seeing the bigger picture. Yes, I am one person who's an engineer or a doctor. I am one Tom or Rakesh or Sunita, but somewhere in the Chaitanyam, we are all connected to the same one source. I hope you liked this video. Join me again next Monday, and I will be back with another Shiva wisdom for you. Om Namah Shivaya.